Good evening. I'm Sue Flykop, a trained moderator from the League of Women Voters of Wayland. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sharon Stoughton, Needham, and Dover Sherborne, welcome to today's Candidates Forum for the 2nd District of the Governor's Council. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. We're a membership organization open to all people who subscribe to its purpose and policies. Women in the name of the organization is a legacy that pays tribute to the veterans of the women's suffrage movement who were our founders over 100 years ago, and to the many women who inspire us all to make democracy work.
Recording in progress.
This forum is part of the League of Women Voters' ongoing voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions at the upcoming elections. We hope that over the course of this program, you will learn more about the candidates running to represent the 2nd District on the Governor's Council. The position is currently vacant. The Governor's Council, also known as the Executive Council, is composed of 8 individuals elected from districts across the state. The 8 councilors are elected from their respective districts every 2 years, and the council meets weekly to record advice and consent on pardons and commutations and various gubernatorial appointments such as judges and parole board members. District 2 includes over 35 towns listed on the slide. For more information about the Governor's Council, please visit mass.gov/orgs/governors-council. The Massachusetts primary is on September 3rd, 2024, and the presidential and Massachusetts general election is on November 5th, 2024. And now onto the candidates forum. I'll start by explaining some of the procedures for the forum, which each candidate received beforehand. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for an opening statement, 1.5 minutes to answer each question, and 1.5 minutes for a closing statement. The opening statements will be done in alphabetical order, and closing statements will be done in reverse alphabetical order. The questions have been compiled by the League, and every candidate will be asked the same questions. I will take the order of who answers a question first. They'll be spotlighted on Zoom and always visible. The clock will change with 15 seconds remaining. To the candidates, please finish your sentence when you see the stop on the clock. If you continue speaking after the stop is visible, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. The questions will be listed in the chat section for those who are viewing on Zoom. Personal references about other candidates or specific people are out of order. And for the audience, this forum is being recorded. A recording will be shared with local access stations in the district. Also for the Zoom audience, please mute yourself and remain muted if you prefer not to be seen. And if you prefer not to be seen, please turn off your video. Okay, so regarding the Governor's Council, there are 4 Democratic and 1 Republican candidate running to represent the 2nd District on the Governor's Council. And they are Tamisha L. Civil, Muriel Elaine Kramer, Sean Murphy, David S. Reservitz, and Francis Crimmins Jr. Sean Murphy is not available to participate due to a scheduling conflict, and Francis Crimmins Jr. is also unable to participate. So we're going to start on opening statements, and we'll start with Tamisha first. You have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement.
Hi, my name's Tamisha Civil, and I'm running for Governor's Council in District 2. I'm running because my cousin was wrongfully imprisoned for 27 years for a murder that he did not commit. In 2021, he was exonerated from all his charges. And that's why I'm running, to stand against injustice, to be a voice for change. I spent decades working in the trial court alongside of judges, defense attorneys, prosecutors, clerk magistrate, assistant district attorneys, as well as police officers. I have a master's degree from Northeastern University for criminal justice and leadership. I help people serve their time and safely re-enter into the community as an associate probation officer. I've worked in juvenile court, mental health court, drug court, civil court, and referred our veterans who have worked and sacrifice their life for our country to help them preserve their records when they come in contact with the criminal justice system. I've worked with the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in the Major Felony Unit to help guide victims through the complex legal system in our criminal justice system. I've been involved in local organizations in the communities to address homelessness, substance abuse, and mental health, and even helping women who have been impacted by domestic violence. And I'm running for governor's council because we need a voice for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. And Muriel, a minute and a half to you.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Muriel Kramer. I am a veteran of the United States Air Force, a longtime public servant in Hopkinton. I've served in elected or appointed roles for 20 years, including on the select board and the planning board, including three years as the chair on the select board. I am also a licensed clinical social worker, and it's my social work background that really brings me to run for the governor's council. I work in healthcare consulting, but I started my career in homelessness services, working with people who are directly impacted by a lot of difficult challenges like substance use disorder, mental illness, and interactions with the criminal legal system. I want to be an advocate for those who've been historically marginalized and disadvantaged in the legal system, whether it's the criminal system or the family court system or the civil court system. I want to elevate the voices of people who need to have people speaking with and for them. I want to, the primary issue that I think really needs to be addressed is limiting the ways that the number of people we incarcerate, addressing the impact of biases and racism, and utilizing treatment, substance use disorder treatment, and mental illness treatment more effectively going forward in the future.
Thank you. And David, a minute and a half to you. You're muted.
Sorry about that. My disconnected right when you said my name. I'm ready. I don't see the clock. Is the clock? Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Dave Reservitz. I am a Democratic candidate for Governor's Council District 2. Thank you as well for this opportunity to meet with you and be heard on this issue. I am originally from Brockton. I then grew up in Easton, Massachusetts, and I now live in Needham, Massachusetts, all three wonderful communities in this rather large district. I am an attorney. I've been a trial attorney since 1996. I started off, like many young lawyers do, in the prosecutor's office, and then rather quickly moved to the public defender's office, where I was elected president of the Plymouth County Bar Advocate Program. I was then elected president of the Plymouth County Bar Association, and then thereafter appointed by Governor Deval Patrick to his Judicial Nominating Commission, which is the first step where judges are vetted. It's something that I'm truly passionate about. I love the professional side of it, but I also love the human side of it. But I also want to ensure that we can have some say in this district over what type of lawyers we are appointing to our judiciary, lawyers that feel strongly about the issues that we do, whether it be protecting women's rights or equality in the LGBTQ community. So these are some of the issues that really drive my motivation for running, and I want to get back to doing this type of work as I've done in the past. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Muriel, we're going to start with you with the first question. You've all mentioned what's inspired you to run, but I'm going to give you another opportunity to talk about your top 3 priorities and also tell us why you think the Governor's Council is important. So Muriel, we'll start with you.
Thank you so much. I think the Governor's Council is important as it is constituted today because it has so much of a say in who is appointed to the roles of judge or clerk magistrate, very powerful roles, as we know, nationally and locally. I think the biggest issues for me is utilizing diversion courts like Veterans Court, like Homeless Court, like Drug Court more effectively to make sure that people get connected to treatment versus and supports versus just incarceration. I think that we really need to really engage with the fact that we know that people of color are incarcerated 6 times more frequently than people not of color, and that people who are poor or have illnesses are very disadvantaged in the proceedings. And we need judges who are going to interact with that information and help us make meaningful change going forward. So I think that restorative justice practices, informing, educating future judges and council members on the ways that we can connect people to constructive futures is really important. And I look forward to being part of that constructive change.
Thank you. And David, the question to you. By the way, you should let me know if you want me to.
I
repeat a
didn't see
question
the
at any
clock
point.
during that question, so I don't know how. So I don't know if it shifts. I should have said something first, but I don't know if it shifts as people are speaking.
It may, I just saw it shifted on me. I
You
don't see
mean
it
the
on my.
location of it? Yeah, it's been the same location for me the whole time.
Could just be our screens.
Maybe as more people come on, it moves. Is everyone seeing the timer now? Or where it says LWV, that block? That's where the
Yeah,
timer is.
I am seeing the LWV.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So that switches over. And could you repeat the question, Susan?
Sure.
Yes.
The official question is, why do you think the Governor's Council is important? And what are your top 3 priorities?
Okay, right. I think the Governor's Council is tremendously important. It's always been tremendously important to me. I have been an attorney for just under 30 years, and I've spent more than half my life in the courtroom. I've tried cases, and I continue to try cases and represent people in criminal matters, but a lot of civil matters, housing matters, domestic matters, even injured workers in the Board of Industrial Accidents. And I see on a daily basis how these judges affect people's lives, whether it be a family coming in begging for help on a substance abuse or mental health issue. Those are probably 2 of the more important issues for me. We're all human beings. We all have families. I have 2 adult daughters now in their 20s, that one of which is working in vet court and drug court this summer on her internship. And it's great conversation for dinner, but these are crucially important issues that we need to make sure that we vet legal candidates to make sure that they have the right temperaments and the right hands-on experience to be able to deal with these crucially important issues that come before them.
Thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you.
Thank you. Well, we know that judges hold an immense amount of power. In this case, from my personal experience, my cousin was incarcerated, and he was for 27 years for a crime he did not commit. And we know judges can turn your life for good, but also turn it upside down. And, working in the courts for the last decades, I've had the opportunity to work with judges, some of the good ones, and some of not the good ones. So we want to make sure when we are nominating judicial nominees, we ask and vet them appropriately. We ask them hard-pressing questions that are impacting people in the community, people who are battling substance abuse, people who are battling mental health and domestic violence. And my top priorities would be equal justice, making sure that judges address the root of the cause, taking domestic violence serious. When a woman comes to the courtroom and asks for help, that they get it the first time. And substance abuse. As an associate probation officer, I help people get back into the community, partnering with programs, making sure that their programs can give our clients the resource and access they need to be contributing members into society. So it holds an immense amount of power, and we need to make sure that we educate and let District 2 constituents know the importance of Governor's Council. And I'm the one to do that due to my experience.
Thank you. And David, this next question will go to you first. And some of you have mentioned what you're looking for with judicial nominees. So this is an official question. You can expand upon your comments earlier if you want. What are your top criteria for supporting or opposing judicial nominees?
My primary criteria is to have a very strong understanding of that attorney's practice, their experience. I am the only candidate in this race on either side, including the Republican, that has actually done this job before when I was appointed by Governor Deval Patrick to the JNC. That's where the process begins. The type of work that we did there, which is similar to the Governor's Council work, is we would vet these candidates based on their legal experience, because this is such a technical and crucially important role as the referee of the courtroom to run the trial and control two other attorneys to make sure that everyone's rights are properly protected. We look at are the experiences of these candidates diverse? Have they represented people in the community more so than corporations? Have they seen or been deeply involved in civil matters, housing matters, domestic family court matters, and criminal matters? But we also look at the human being. What type of role do they play in their community? How do they feel about the important issues like women's right to choose and tough on gun laws and things that we know we need them to be to stand strong on, especially against a federal court that is not moving in the right direction. So those are my priorities.
Thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you next.
Well, what are the top criteria? The top criteria is making sure that these judicial nominees' ideology consist of the constituents that are in District 2. We talk about diversity, but for 244 years, there's never been a Democratic woman of color on the Governor's Council. We need to make sure we have representation, and we need to make sure that when we have a representation council, that we're opening the doors for other judicial nominees that have experience with communities of color, that have experience with women's issues and women's rights, that have the experience of knowing the amount of pain and suffering that the LGBTQ community has been going through. We need to make sure we are evaluating the legal qualifications of and professional backgrounds of these judicial nominees, ensuring nominees adhere into high ethical standards. What are their party affiliations? What are their political affiliations, including reviews, past conducts, financial disclosures, and any disciplinary action. You know, political affiliation and past statements, we need to do the due diligence to make sure we vet these nominees appropriately so that we're not having judges such as the one that my cousin had that put him away wrongfully for 27 years, but making sure everyone is counted for and has justice.
Thank you. And Muriel, the question to you.
Yeah, thank you. I still don't see the clock. My apologies if I'm, oh, I have it.
Okay.
I am looking for candidates that certainly represent a great deal of experience and the appropriate temperament. I think diversity across a lot of categories is important. Looking at diversity of race, also diversity of geography, also diversity of experience, whether it's in family court, civil court, mental health court, as a prosecutor or as a defense attorney. We know that today it's more heavily weighted in the judicial system towards prosecutors, and we need balance there as well. I'd also be looking at lived experience. Do people have experience with some of the struggles that the folks in front of them experience on a daily basis, and how they incorporate that in their deliberations and decision making? I'm going to look for somebody who has a growth mindset, somebody who's willing to take the issues of the day. We know we don't want to lose any of our rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights. We want to maintain those rights, but we have a lot of work to do to reach some sort of equitable state where we are really meeting the needs of our constituents across all demographics. And people need to enter into hard conversations and interact with what we know is wrong and what needs to be improved in the system.
Thank you. All right, this next question is about the parole board. So Tamisha, we'll start with you. Which criteria do you consider most essential in selecting parole board candidates?
What's most essential is the background of the parole nominee, what their experience, what work they've done, the understanding of the parole board. Have they worked with organizations that people have been impacted in? Have you worked with victims that have been tremendously impacted by crime? Have you worked with defendants that committed crime? One of the things that I've noticed is I've been able to experience going to hearings with victims, sitting with them while working for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, sitting with them, helping them, assisting them, and helping them to understand the process and the decisions that a parole board member works. That is what a parole board member is saying or doing, being able to navigate the system, their profession, what is their understanding of the crime and the reasoning of any kind of decision that they make. I also had the experience going to several parole board hearings with my cousin, having him been denied so many years for something he didn't do. But we need to make sure that we are putting people in place that has the experience, that has the understanding of what people in the community, regardless of wherever they're from, the process of a parole board, and not just listening to people that put them in the position of what to do or to be coerced, but making sure that we put a parole board nominee that is fair and just and understands the mission of a parole board member.
Thank you. And David, the questions to you next.
Thank you. I think that the vetting process for parole board members is more general in many ways than the vetting process that the council is responsible for judges. Specifically, attorneys exclusively will be coming before the governor's council seeking judicial appointment. Parole board members come from a more diverse or broad professional spectrum. And I think that's a good thing, as a potential parolee should have the benefit of hearing from professionals with this broad spectrum of knowledge. I think the most important criteria are to analyze why that individual was incarcerated in the first place, look at their life, see if there were any major life-changing factors, loss of a loved one, any types of addiction or mental health issues that were major contributors to the offense. Look for any repetitive nature or lack thereof in the offense, and look for ties to the community so that we can continue to move our incarcerated population in the right direction, which, as we know, has almost cut in half in the last 15 years. So I think those are the most important issues in choosing parole board members to do their job right.
Thank you. And Muriel, the question to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that the parole board, like the judges, but the parole board in particular, serves such a critical role in sort of addressing the gap, bridging the gap between incarceration and reentry into the community. So I'm going to be looking, as other candidates have said, for a diversity of experience. I'm going to be looking for people who have a really constructive and positive outlook for people who have been previously incarcerated, who understand what the previously incarcerated population, returning citizens, really may need, and be able to interact with community partners, with other professional partners, know the pathways, know the supports that are needed. If a person is in treatment when they're incarcerated for a substance use disorder, they need to be connected to treatment as they're exiting incarceration, as they almost always need a great deal of help with housing, food supports, connections to jobs are very challenging for people who are returning to their communities. And we need to do more to make that more sustainable and more constructive. So I'm going to be looking for people who really understand the needs of the reentering population, returning citizens, and how they can help bridge that gap and help folks be successful reentering community.
Thank you. And Muriel, this next question, we'll start with you first. And it's about pardons. So what are your top considerations when considering the governor's pardon recommendations? What are your top considerations?
Yeah, again, I think that I am always going to center and focus on the need of the individual returning to community. Understanding that we have to balance those needs with the community's needs and concerns, with all the circumstances of the case. But I really think that the actions that the Governor's Council takes should primarily be focused on making sure we are enabling constructive futures for individuals who have been previously involved with the legal system. I think it's important to understand all the implications, the circumstances of the case and of what has taken place. But I'm always going to be focused on ways that as a deciding body, we can be putting appropriate supports in place for people to be successful if in fact they are going to be able to be pardoned. I think that we need to look at that more frequently. I'd love to see more activity out of the governor's office in terms of helping people really reconnect with constructive futures. And I'm looking forward to being part of that.
Thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you next.
We need to, when we're considering pardons, we need to make sure we analyze and assess and the nature and the severity of the case and the offense, how much time has lapsed, and the evidence of rehabilitation. Is it a good thing to let them out to get rehabilitated, or can they even be rehabilitated? The impacts of the conviction of the individual's life, we have to think about the victims, but I know that we're looking at the offender, but we need to consider the victim, how he or she's life has been impacted since the case, to support from community members and law enforcement and victims. We need to consider, the current circumstance of if this person can be employed, what are the resources and access that we're going to be able to provide this individual when they're going back into the community. Typically submitting an application, an appropriate one, for authority from the governor and the pardon board. We need personal statements. We need some interviews to make sure that it's coming from those from the organization that is petitioning for this person to be released, but also making sure that there is a place and a system for this individual that is going to be pardoned. We need to make sure what the legal implications will be. Can it be expunged if the cases that they're listening to? But that's what I would say in regards to that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, the question to you.
Thank you. I think what I would add to this issue is really strictly from a governor's counselor's perspective. Their job is narrow. They don't create or suggest legal changes, as does our legislature. Their job is to vet the candidates that are going to make decisions on things as important as, in the criminal sector, incarceration, and in the parole board, release back into society. I have seen personally, as an attorney in courts all over the district, from Framingham District Court down to Brockton and Attleboro and Quincy, throughout every court in this district, that the trend has been very productive. Most of the candidates that are vetted by the JNC and approved by the council are very proactive in reintegrating people into society, giving multiple choices on probation surrender hearings, alternatives to incarceration, and supportive of parole releases. But it is crucial that we choose the right people that believe in these programs and believe in the individuals seeking these second chances in our community.
Thank you. All right, David, the next question is for you first. So what changes would you support to make the Governor's Council more transparent? Would you commit to posting the rules and policies for the Governor's Council?
Absolutely. I will be ready to start right away if I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to be elected. I feel that my experience enables me to do so, but I'll also be the only voice for this great district that I'm born and raised in. And I want every member of this community to have a seat at that table. I want to reach out and talk to the labor unions. I want to keep in contact with my strong relationships with the district and superior and family courts throughout the community. They should understand how the council works, what is before the council, what vote will their counselor be making on a candidate. I have pledged since day one, I'm not going to vote for a candidate that doesn't support a woman's right to choose. Some people don't agree with that. I know most in this venue do, but that's a position that I take that some people in this race have not committed to. But as far as the open communication, whether they agree with that or not, it will always be open. And I think that the council, who has not always enjoyed, frankly, the best reputation, needs to entirely open up the transparency of its proceeds so that the people of their districts can observe the process.
Thank you. And Muriel, the question to you next.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am a huge transparency proponent. It's part of how I got involved in local politics, and I really am very committed to that idea. Yes, I would agree to publishing the rules and regulations. I would also, I would go a little bit further, make sure that it's easy for people to really on a layperson's level, really understand the workings, the schedule. I think that the individual counselors should report out on their interviews with candidates. I think that the votes in 2024, the votes of the governor's council should be available electronically. They're currently, I guess, written and not available easily. I think you can make a public records request, of course, but any information that's pertinent to the public should be easily accessible online at this point. So I would, I would also encourage the folks at home to know that they do live stream the hearings, and that is good news. You can attend, and you can also watch online, or you can watch after the fact. But the decision-making process should be very transparent, and people should be able to access that after the fact to look it up. I also think that it's important to have an open line of communication with constituents. We should know how people are feeling about the work of the governor's council. They should have a mechanism for getting in touch with us, and I will make sure I make that happen for folks.
Okay, thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, I would definitely, I love transparency. We need transparency, and we definitely need to publish the policies and rules for our constituents to know who's being nominated, who's being interviewed, making it public. We know that social media is available to everyone, making sure that my constituents who are following me on social media knows when there's going to be a judicial nominee being vetted, and how to get information on that particular nominee, making sure, sending out newsletters to the constituents, visiting courts, making sure that we're having conversation of those who are being impacted in the community, being available for them if there's a question about who we are nominating, to make that available. As my opponent Muriel said, the public hearings are open to the public, but how many people in the public knows that? So we need to open up the communication barrier for people, those who have access to internet and those who don't have access to internet. We need to always make sure that we are letting people know who these nominees are. We need to vet the backgrounds of these nominees. We need to ask questions. We need to make our due diligence as far as going out to the public and making sure that this individual is not hiding behind their suits or their dresses to say that they're the person for the job when they're not.
Okay, thank you. Tamisha, you're going to have this question first next. And that was a good segue, because my question is, there are over 35 towns in District 2, And what can you do to effectively represent people in these towns?
Well, what I can do is what I've been doing already. I'm in the community. I'm talking to our constituents. I'm listening to them. Most importantly, listening to them. I'm making sure that I hear them, and I'm also making sure I let them and educate them on what the Governor Council does and how much power they have. I'm in organizations. I'm in the community. I'm talking to our young people. I have connections with the organizations that I volunteer with. And it's important to be available, not just for professional experience, saying that I've worked with this person, name dropping, but making sure that I'm talking the talk and walking the walk. I'm out there. I'm speaking to our constituents. I'm in these organizations. I'm a commissioner for women, for the Eastern Women Status of Women and Girls, where we fight for policies and ask our legislators to vote for them. I'm part of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, where we in the Southeastern region are helping families and all mankind to get the services and access that they need. I'm an associate probation officer, making sure that our clients, my clients, are getting the resource and access from mental health professionals, from substance abuse professionals. I'm here standing with women for women's rights, helping women navigate the criminal justice system when they are felt unheard during domestic violence issues. I'm in these spaces in the community, helping individuals know what Governor's Council does and the power behind it.
Thank you. And Muriel, the question to you next.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. As a social worker, I do this kind of work for a living. I really believe that the systems that we design need to incorporate the voices of the individuals that we're designing the systems to serve. So very often I do needs assessments or stakeholder engagement events, especially to make sure that the systems that I'm part of are meeting the needs of people that they're intended to serve. More than that, I think that I am prepared to dedicate the time to this. Before I decided to run, I have the flexibility to reduce my work hours. So if I'm lucky enough to win and serve, I will reduce my work hours to make sure I can accommodate the full breadth and scope of this job. I will take it very seriously. I will not only, do all the work to vet the candidates, I will participate in the meetings fully, but also I will be available to my constituents, and it's a huge town, you're right, available to my constituents to give me feedback, right? Give me information on what's important to them, but also provide feedback on how I'm doing so that I can improve as I go. So I will commit to still getting out to the communities as much as possible and being accessible.
Thank you. And the question to David next.
Thank you. I think that what really is the most applicable to making sure that there's a strong connection between the work done on behalf of the district on the Governor's Council and the district, the people of the district, is really done on the candidates themselves. Because I think we all know well about our district. I certainly know this district very well. I know the people of this district. The lines of communication will always be open. But what is owed to the people of this district is that the Governor's Council that they elect takes a thorough understanding and investigation into the candidates that are going to be sitting on the courts, affecting the lives of those people and their families. We have to remember, the Governor's Council is a very narrow scope. Their job is simply to vote yes or no on attorneys seeking judicial appointment. So we have to take every opportunity we can to, and it doesn't always happen on those Wednesday afternoons in the Governor's Council, in those meetings that I've been to and some of us have been to. It happens on the phone. It happens in the community, and reaching out to really make sure that these important appointments are going to treat the members of the community properly.
Thank you. All right, our next question will go to Muriel. Why do you believe you are the best candidate for the Governor's Council at this time?
So I believe that I'm the best candidate for the Governor's Council at this time because my focus is really on justice, social justice, from the perspective of people who need an advocate in the system. I don't work within the system, and I see that as an advantage because I have full range of my advocacy. I think that I work professionally to elevate the voices and the needs of people who are often marginalized by systems that have been constructed that are hard to navigate and can be problematic, particularly for people who are less resourced or advantaged in society. So I really, I have the opportunity and the flexibility at this point in my career to make the time to do this job completely. I am very knowledgeable about the issues that impact a lot of people caught up in the legal system, like substance use disorder, like mental illness, and the treatment options that are available. And I look forward really to the opportunity to help, I said it before, help people cover the gaps between systems so that we really don't lose people between the legal system and reentry back into society or anywhere within the legal system. I have a real focus on making sure our judges have a compassionate, educated approach.
Thank you very much. And David, the question to you next.
I feel I'm the most qualified and best candidate to represent this great district due to my experience. I am the only candidate in this race, even on the Republican side, that has done this job already before. I was fortunate to have been appointed due to my experience by Governor Deval Patrick. We worked very hard on the board that he appointed me to, which is the Judicial Nominating Commission. It is the first step that each and every attorney seeking judicial appointment must pass through successfully. It is a somewhat thorough vetting process with 1 or 2 interviews and thorough due diligence. The commissioners, like myself, will contact members of the legal community, opposing counsels that the counsel that those lawyers had on other cases, judges, to really make certain that they possess the skills. So I have previous experience in vetting these candidates. I'm also a busy trial attorney that has handled many cases beginning to end to jury verdict in many cases over the last 30 years throughout Southeastern Massachusetts. So I have a unique perspective to understand what makes an attorney the most optimal candidate to be a judge affecting the lives of this community.
Thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you next.
Thank you. I'm the best candidate because I've had over more than a decade working alongside of judges in the criminal and legal system. I work with judges 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. I'm able to see their temperament. I'm able to see how they act. I'm able to see how they decide on cases. I have the first hand on how the system can leave people vulnerable, people behind. And I'm here to make that change. Come on, it's 2024. There's never been a woman of color, Democratic woman of color, on the council for 244 years. I bring a diverse voice. I've worked in different courts in Massachusetts. I've worked in different departments in the criminal justice system. We need someone who's going to represent someone without the constituents, without worrying about where they're from, what color they are, their sexual orientation, what zip code they live in. I have the first hand of understanding what the constituents are going through in the courts. I have an understanding of how judges make decisions when they're not aware that substance abuse is a disease and it should be treated as a disease. We need to put people in treatment instead of incarceration. I understand what it means when a mother and a father or a family member is crying for their child or loved one to be sectioned for Section 35, and the judge needs to make a decision. I have that experience firsthand. And we need someone who's going to be a voice for a diverse district that we are serving, and I'm the one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And David, this last question is to you, so you can almost take your deep breath. So the last question is, do you plan to stay in this position, provided that the voters support you for an extended period, say 10 years or more, or do you see this more as a step towards another office?
I'm glad you asked that question. I'm not old and I'm not young. I'm in my mid-50s and I'm not a politician. When you see the ballot, you're going to see me last on the ballot alphabetically, and it says David S. Rezovitz from Needham. I've never been a state rep. I've never been a select board member, and I've never run for any political office. I sit on a number of boards, including the Boys and Girls Club, and I do a lot of pro bono work in the legal community, and I've been an appointed member of Deval Patrick's Judicial Nominating Commission, which does not constitute political office. It was an advisory board. I'm a lawyer. This is all I want to do. This is all I've ever wanted to do. I will seek no further office, and if I'm elected, I want to hold this office for 20 years and connect with the community on a long-term basis so that I know exactly how they're feeling about the decisions that their governor's counselor is making. So this is the only office that I have ever sought and the only office that I ever will seek. And I think it's a perfect fit for my professional and my personality. So I'm excited about the opportunity to get started as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. And Tamisha, the question to you.
I don't know, I can't foresee the future, but what I can tell you is, if I'm given the opportunity to be the next governor's council, I will stay on the council until there's representation. I will stay on the council until we have a plethora of judges that reflect the district the way that it needs to. According to Harvard research, there's less than 13% of judges that are people of color. I will not leave the council seat until our district is satisfied with the presentation or with the nominees that we've elected so that we can make sure that their voice are being heard. We can say a lot. We can say that we're not going to seek another position. We can say that we're going to stay, but oftentimes I'm a public servant. And what I've noticed with politicians, they'll tell you to do one thing and then they'll say one thing and do another. I'm a public servant. Most often you'll see a politician say, you'll see me in the community and never see them again. What we want to make sure is that we protect the governor's council. We nominate judicial nominees that have the same ideology as those in the community, that is going to be fair and impartial, that are not going to be hiring their lawyer friends so that they can call on cases in front of them, because it does happen. We need to make sure that our council is doing their job and it's ethical and it's making sure that no one is left behind and all voices are being heard and nobody is rights are being impacted. We want to make sure that.
Okay, Tamisha, I'm afraid the timer got a little wonky and it gave you some extra time.
Right,
So if you
I'm
could
sorry.
just wrap up. I'm sorry.
It's
Sorry to
okay.
interrupt. Okay. Muriel, the question to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it's an interesting question. I am actually a pretty firm believer in the fact that this shouldn't be a decades-long position. There should be some turnover and change. That said, I think that it also makes sense for people to get on and serve and learn and stay on for a little while if they're doing a good job so that they get better over time. I am very definitely interested in serving for more than one term. I would serve for several terms if I'm still representing the community the way that they want me to serve. I do think too, though, that that really there should be more turnover than we typically see on the governor's council. I think that there should be an opportunity for new perspectives, new voices. I think that that brings energy and vitality to any board, commission, or organization. So it's a really interesting question. I am committed to serve. I'm committed to serve in the future. I do not have any aspirations for any other office. Truly, when this office came open, because of my social justice work, my family and I discussed it, and we really believe that this is like the one slot at the state level that I am uniquely suited for and uniquely interested in. And I would really, I would be humbly appreciative of the people's vote on September 3rd.
Okay, thank you. And so we're done with all our questions. Deep breath, and we're heading into closing statements. And we'll start in reverse order from the way we started. And David, a minute and a half to you for your closing statement.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you all very much for providing us the opportunity. Thank you to the organizations and to my opponents. And this type of spirited exchange is, I think, always very productive. I'm very excited about the opportunity to potentially serve this community as your governor's counselor. As I've mentioned, I feel strongly that I have the experience to get to work on day one on the council if elected. I have previous experience in vetting judicial candidates, which is the bulk of the work done by the commission, but it is crucially important. It is crucially important that these candidates, despite having already been vetted by the JNC, are vetted in an bipartisan type of way, in that they are not simply just put forth by the governor that has to be seated, that happens to be seated at that time. Naturally, there could be a Republican governor offer at some point, office at some point, and I want to make sure that we have candidates that have the experience, but also have the right ideologies to keep Massachusetts and its judiciary moving in the right direction, despite what's happening with the Supreme Court. Thank you.
Thank you. And Muriel, a minute and a half to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm running because I think that we can and we must start to operationalize the changes we need to see for the legal system of the future. Decisions that we make on the Governor's Council are crucially important and really impact the people we serve. We want judges that stand firm on reproductive rights, LGBTQIA plus rights, workers' rights, and more. But we also want judges, clerk magistrates, and other appointees that are going to look to the future and understand and embrace the need for change and can engage with really challenging conversations to address systemic racism within the system, to advance equity, to knowledgeably and confidently divert to treatment or include treatment in sentencing for people who need it, to knowledgeably and confidently keep families together as they struggle potentially with substance use disorder or mental illness, and to understand and utilize the pathways to treatment that are available more effectively. I really understand and will incorporate the voices of those with lived experiences and challenges. And I really firmly believe that we can design a system, we can be part of a system that is more constructive and more proactive and more healthy for people. I look forward to bringing a new voice, a voice of advocacy for constructive change to all appointees and all decisions on the Governor's Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Tamisha, a minute and a half to you.
Thank you. I'm running for Governor's Council because it has the power to directly examine and combat injustices in our criminal justice system. The council must and is an important job to vet approving judicial nominees, a duty that will use to ensure the justice system is filled with qualified judges who will do what they say they will do, and to ensure that what happened to my cousin does not happen to any other families in the district or in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We need someone that deeply understands the importance of combating injustice. I have the life experience, I have the professional expertise, and the vision of the future that District 2 needs as a Governor's Council. We need to make sure that we're not We're not nominating corporate lawyers that's going to be making money off the back of our constituents. We need to make sure that we are not repeating history. We need to make sure that there is a diverse voice on the council that has been through it all, that worked through it all, and that persevered to make sure that it's a people's court and not a judge's court. We want to make sure all voices is heard. We don't want to repeat history. There's never been a woman of color, Democratic woman of color on the council for 244 years. We need to make her story. We don't need to make repeat history again. And I'm running and I'm asking for everyone's voice, and I'm asking for everyone's vote on September 3rd, Democratic primary for Tamisha Civil. Thank you.
I'd like to close this forum by thanking all the candidates for their participation in our democratic process. This was a very interesting candidates forum. Just as a reminder to our voters, there are 4 Democratic and 1 Republican candidate running to represent the 2nd District on the Governor's Council. The 4 Democratic candidates are Tamisha L. Civil, Muriel Elaine Kramer, Sean Murphy, and David S. Reservitz. Sean Murphy was unable to participate due to a scheduling conflict. The Republican candidate is Francis Crimmins Jr., and he was also unable to participate. To our audience again, please visit your town clerk's website for more information on the election. The last day to register to vote for the state primary is August 24th, 2024. We hope you found this candidates forum informative. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sharon Stoughton, Needham, and Dover Sherborne, we thank you all for attending, and want to encourage you to join the League of Women Voters. Please visit vote411.org for more information about the upcoming primary and election, and lwvma.org to find more information about the League of Women Voters. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.